drew out a sketch, and this was the trailer that resulted from it, and it was in either 69 or 70 it was built. And it was the first gooseneck with dog boxes. And it's been pulled thousands of miles and wore out 4 trucks, maybe 5. I pulled it to Canada every year, and field trials all over the place, and it's still ready to go. You want to pull it. And probably, I think 3 floors. And Dr. Gordon and I were plotting one night and decided the thing to do was to paint it, fix it up, and have all the dogs' names that those that had ridden in it. It would be quite a list. We're through. These are the 4 puppy pens where an awful lot of dogs have been raised through the years, and time was there'd be 2 litters to the pen, but that's a while back. The old bitch in the back pen is a younger sister to Brute. These 2 in the front are Semper Fi pups, and the little puppies it came from Randy Anderson's. We bred some dogs up there, and they're nice. 2 Brute puppies and 2 Semper Fi puppies. This kennel over here was an addition of Bill Reisinger's old kennel. I had sworn that I wasn't going to build any more pens, because when you build pens, you tend to fill them up. Brought those up here and set them up, and they've had dogs in them pretty well ever since. The one on the far end is Miss Daisy. She's Don Hickman's bitch by Whippoorwill Rebel and out of Limelight. An exceptional understatement wine list bitch. The other dogs are all young dogs, 4 of them, and then this building is the old whelping house. It's had an awful lot of dogs whelped in there. The box on this side was the first one that one of the 2 built. The other one just finally wore completely out, and it was replaced. But man, buckboard, understatement, Semper Fi, on and on, whelped there. A few good ones and a lot of them that didn't work out too well. The pens behind, we'll walk back there. That's where I brought Man when he got so selective in his breeding preferences. These 2 pens back here are pretty airy. The dog on the far side is the Courier, an understatement wine list dog who probably, in my judgment, would be the best breeding dog of that cross. And there were a lot of them. Wine list, of course, is the leading producer of winners. Never could win a championship with him. He'd extraordinary bird finding, as good as there was out of that cross. And but he, he'd have 2 finds for you, and the 3rd one he'd rear back and chase them off. Never had him really reliable growth. This house is has been home to an awful lot of baby puppies, some of which went on and made names. This is a place where I selected for a cemetery quite a while ago, a good number of years ago, because I think it's a pretty place. There's two big oak trees here, and this little rise is a place where the puppies have we've always walked them from the kennel down here, and the creek right there that they've nearly all of them learned to play in water. They learned to cross the fence right back here and fence up there, so they pretty well spent their lives coming down through here, and this is where they wound up. There aren't any markers, but on this little knoll we have buried special duty and clown, understatement, man, absolutely, swinging through. Notice that here's where Krug was buried. Understatement and wine list both are buried around the base of this hill. Rebel hawks here, and it's kind of a little special place. There are a number of other dogs, good brood bitches that had through the years. Are also buried here. All of those sires. And I've always thought that I was going to have one big long marker made with as many of the names on it as I could come up with, and just have one slab someplace here. And may still get around to doing that someday. But it's peaceful. Think about seeing Clown cracking his tail, or Man at the Puppy Classic, or talking to Rebel Hawk, or just a pretty place. The old Johnny house has seen some wear, but it's really not from use. Never really had the great success with it we thought we'd have, because predators raided the thing so much. Never could overcome that. These trees have really grown since first dog funeral we had here. And I don't remember who that was. It's always fun with the puppies to come down that line from the kennel, and then when you get to this creek, it always has water in it, and they can have their first water experience. Puppies are filled with so much delight. You have so much hope for them that maybe that's really the fun of it. Bird dogs were really intended to be fun and a hobby, and they have been both.
the dogs themselves are the only thing that keep you, or at least keep me interested in it. Puppies capture your imagination and interest and sometimes heart. There was a dog that I had here who's buried over under the trees, who I didn't mention, that has someplace in pointer history. Bisco Pete. He was Pete Hicks' first real dog and the progenitor of Bisco Tat and Bisco Big Jack and all that line of dogs. He was a big liver dog, extraordinarily smart. And he wound up my dad's gun dog, the last dog Dad hunted over. And he lies over there under the trees with the others. I like the business of starting to raise dogs. I guess the energy carried over. I had been involved in journalism for all my young life. Worked in the Muskogee newspapers for quite a while, and then down to Houston for Scripps-Howard. I was in the service. I was news editor of Stars and Stripes in the Pacific, Tokyo, and then became press secretary to the governor, Edmondson, and went with him to Washington as his administrative assistant when he went to the Senate, and got involved with federal politics and Mr. Johnson, and wound up being treasurer of the Democratic National Committee, and all that busy and fast life I really wanted to put behind me. But I guess I still had the head of steam and energy that caused me to want more dogs than I should have, and to get involved more heavily in raising them than I probably should have. But anyway, it's been fun. And there was one thing that had bugged me for a number of years, and that was the BS that went on. You'd hear, especially dog trainers, imagining all of their wins and imagining how wonderful it had been, and there was no way to, there weren't any statistics available. The field didn't make them available, and I finally learned that there existed at the field some records. It was an old file, yellowed with age, some of it in pencil, that had kept a listing of all the championships. And I got a computer, and it was when computers were not what they are today, though that wasn't too long ago. So I got that file and borrowed it from Bernie and organized the championships, and then could say that trainer X really handled X number of champions, and here's what they are, and who the owners were, and who the breeders were. And I was fascinated by it. And I have to say some of that fascination has worn off, and I haven't kept those figures up the last couple of years, though my intention is to bring them up to date, which won't be difficult. And I branched out, I guess, into the business of helping with field trials and putting them on, and I let that get bigger than it should have. I became president of the Oklahoma Amateur Trial and was for 20-some years at Ardmore. We started the Bryan County Trial down at Coves at Caddo. Bobby Stewart's ranch down there is one of the finest places that trials were ever run. Cove had a way of finding great places to train, and he understood field trial grounds and the needs of them. The old Bryan County trials, when they were run down there, were really more fun than any. We just had a good time. It was a wonderful place, always had birds. And Cove left Caddo, we of course moved it to Ardmore, and the pack saddle trial kind of evolved out in western Oklahoma, and ran it for years and moved it down to Ardmore. And it was a fun trial in the west, but we never drew the crowds that had at Caddo when all the Texans would come up and just really have a good time. And the championships, we doing the research on the champions, I found that there were 2 old championships in Canada which had been abandoned, and the Elkhorn was one of them, and the Great Northern was the other. And so I hit Bernie up to let us start a championship as a renewal of those 2 in western Oklahoma, and utilize that wonderful grounds on the Pack Saddle Ranch. And he did, and we started the Mid-America. I was always fascinated with the longer heats that were run at the All-American in Canada and some of the other trials. So when we started the Mid-America, we started an hour and a half with an hour derby. Never drew very many dogs out there, but it's usually fun. And it, of course, has since to Kansas one year, is now run in Veneta, but it's a good trial. When Cove died, he gave me the Saskatchewan, and we didn't get the grounds in Canada, and ran it for a few years on the Leach Ranch near Towner in North Dakota, and then moved it for a time or two down to western Oklahoma. And the Canadians at first didn't want to, they had the All-American, and they didn't really want to trade names, but it finally dawned on them that it made more sense to have the Saskatchewan up there, and we did trade the Saskatchewan for the All-America, which we've run the last 2 years on a really outstanding grounds in South Dakota, near Trail City. I got involved with Perry Michaels when he had to make a choice of appointment by Bill Clinton to the Game and Fish Commission or the Board of Higher Education in Arkansas. And I may have been the persuader who convinced him he could do more by going on the Game and Fish Commission, and he very much wanted trial grounds there. And the long and short of that was the development of the Blue Mountain facility, which was done almost overnight. One theory was that build the buildings and they would have to develop the grounds, and that worked out. I think that it's one of the finest facilities for field trials in the country. Last year it was wonderful. Grounds were developed in an outstanding way. And we didn't have a championship over there, but we had a qualifying stake that had been run out at the pack saddle, really just to kind of keep it alive. It was a qualifying stake for the national championship. And we moved it over to Blue Mountain, ran it a couple of times, and it became the Southland. And it's a championship that anybody can be proud of winning. Tony Terrell always asks, why do you bother to put on trials? They're a lot of work. They have always lost money, and I don't have any answer. Thought about it a lot, and I guess the fun part of it is trying to offer a fair and level table for dogs to compete on in good grounds. I've always tried to run, and I think have, without exception, on wild game. And I think that's important. The unpleasantness of it has come from handlers grumbling and pettiness, and I guess their general feeling that you are obligated to put on field trials for their benefit. And that's an irritation that I guess just goes with the territory. And the mentality and mindset of those guys. There have been some wonderful trainers that I've known through the years. Fred Arant and Paul Walker and the Gateses. And John Rex is easily and by far the finest showman, and his record supports that. He knew how to show a dog, knew what he had, he knew where he was, and he won, and he was pleasant to be around. He would he had the personality that, or has, that would cause judges to want to place these dogs, and rather than trying to do it by intimidation and that sort of thing. Paul Walker, gentleman. Stub Pointer, who just made trials more fun when he was there. And there's a young group that has some interesting people in it that should be successful for a long time. I guess the best trial that I ever watched was in Florida a few years ago when Nathan Cottrell and I were the judges, and Pete Hicks won it with Bisco Big Jack. It would have been 87. Spectacular. Every handler was there at the end of the week on Sunday night at dark when we came in, and Pete had been so contrary during the week that they'd called the sheriff out for the announcement. Not a truck had moved, nobody had gone home. We'd been clear on what dog we were going to place right along. But every handler there had a performance in his string that could give him reason to think, well, maybe I won something. Because it was Chinkapin at its absolute finest. And, there's no better place south of the prairie to run a bird dog than the Bakers. From facilities to birds to everything about it. It's a wonderful, fun place. It always kind of bothers me when somebody wants to tell me, well, I judge so-and-so, or I judge this, I judge that. Usually he's a guy you kind of want to avoid. I started going quite a little bit, motivated because I wanted to see how it was done in other places, and have had the good fortune to watch dogs pretty well across the country. And I guess open champions into the almost 50, and probably that many amateur championships. It's been fun. I started keeping a list when I got the computer, and I remember when we placed Wayne Lineback's dog in the Georgia Championship. It was his first big win, both the dog and Wayne. I always enjoyed Georgia. Back to the kind of here, when I got the figures together on championships, I automatically had information on breeders, sires, dams, and that sort of thing. And I'm extraordinarily honored to have bred open champions in the league with Mr. Sage and Mr. Gates. Mr. Gates had 16, and Mr. Sage raised or bred 17, and 17 have been bred here. I'm also pleased at the record that the females that came from the place have made. Wine List is a leading producer of pointers. She was bred here, as was her dam, Daughter of Man. And on that same list, Swinging Through, who we did not raise, but who was always bred here, and she had 12 placements and 25 winners. Wine List had only one placement and 42 winners. And in picking up those first few females to start off, I felt that I wanted female lines which were pretty well proven, and we used a couple of daughters of both Barlane Dot and Streamliner, who are also on that Pointer Dam winners list. The seeing the dogs win has been fun, and raising them even more fun. I've enjoyed writing about them, and I've enjoyed writing about other people's dogs, and have no earthly idea how many reports that done for the field. The dogs are a smaller population now, and it's going to stay that way. Just going to raise dogs for my own purpose, stand, brute, and perhaps simplify if he continues to do well and shows that he's a good producer, which I believe he will be. I think that Ashley Edwards and starting young dogs, he was the key in that. Ashley is extraordinary, understands it. A.J. Greenwood. I've raised dogs with Dr. Knowles. One time when I was in a little lull and wasn't caring about him much, I made an arrangement where I would furnish the female and designate the sire to be bred to, and he would have them bred and raise the pups down in Florida, and that went on for about a year or so. I've been raising some dogs in partnership with Randy Anderson for the last few years, and we've raised some very nice dogs, and I'm sure we will in the future. It's those early starts of dogs is so key. Don Hickman's excellent at picking out a pup, and walks. He's a walker, and he takes them with him from day one. And actually, Krug was his dog, and probably encouraged that mating as much as anyone. And the mating produced Barshuzar and Windfall, Krug, all champions, and then 2 or 3 dogs that like the Courier and Limelight, who were as good or better bird finders than the others, but didn't have the same open opportunities or really field trial opportunities, so they won quite a little. It's been fun. I put together a fair library and was more interested in it and keeping up with it for a time maybe than I am now. We haven't quit, and going to do it differently with fewer dogs, and continue to enjoy the puppies and to see the other dogs win. This is a trophy that I'm very pleased and happy about and honored by the Hall of Fame and President Kennedy and Governor Edmondson. This is absolutely my main man's dam. And this is milepost 17.